we're going to start chapter 7, which talks about production cost. And really what we're trying to establish here is what a firm is trying to analyze whenever they're starting a business. So a firm is an organization that combines the inputs of labor, capital, land, raw or finished component materials to produce outputs. A firm is just a business that is taking labor and materials, processing them to make a final product, and then sell it. Okay. Some firms are under what is called private enterprise, which is basically the ownership of businesses by private individuals, and they are trying to produce. All right. So they have a production function. They have a production process. So this is the process of combining inputs to produce outputs, ideally of a value greater than the value of the inputs. It's pretty simple, right? You buy coffee beans for $20 a pound, you buy milk, you buy cups, you buy all those things, and hopefully you sell coffee as a latte to where the value of it is more than what you paid for it, right? That's the whole point of being in business. And so questions for a firm that they're trying to answer is, what should we produce? If we're going to be competing in a market, how similar are your products to another? You need to consider how difficult it is to start a business. And then you need to figure out, how do you want to compete? Do you want to be a low-cost industry, or do you want to be a high-quality industry? So really, these are the questions that we need to look at. So throughout this process, we're going to be establishing different markets that we have, ranging from many firms selling identical products under perfect competition, all the way to the other side, which is monopoly, where there's just one firm and they sell a unique product. There's no similar ones. Okay. So overall, we do have a lot of firms with a different number of employees here. The larger percentage of firms do have more than 500 employees. So we do have a different breakdown on market structures, which we will definitely get into. So the first thing I want to establish are the different types of costs that we have. We have either explicit or implicit cost. Now, I mentioned earlier about the lattes, and hopefully you sell them at a higher price. When you sell the lattes or any other product that you're making, you are going to be gaining revenue, your income from selling those goods and services. How we calculate revenue is you're taking the price of your product times the quantity. It's pretty straightforward. You sell a latte at $6. You sell 100 of them. You have a total revenue of $600. This is how much money that you're making. Now, we do have to look at the cost of making those goods and services. All right. So after we make our revenue, pay out our costs, we can then gain our profit after that. There are two types of costs that we consider in economics. The first one is explicit costs. These are the out-of-pocket actual payments for things. So wages, cost of materials, rent, all of those things that you're actually paying for to produce your product, those are what we call explicit costs. All right. Now, implicit costs is another thing that we have to consider. Now, the implicit costs are the opportunity cost of using resources that the firm already owns. Some examples of these are depreciation of goods and services, resources an owner contributes, foregone salary, or using a home space for a retail space. Now, the main thing about implicit costs, it is the opportunity cost. All right. Again, it's the value of what you're giving up to do what you desire. All right. So depreciation counts because it's not a direct cost of business. It's just the loss in value from your assets. When you buy a car for $30,000, you sign away, you drive it off the lot, instantly it loses a lot of value. So that is your implicit cost of owning a car, is that depreciation. All right. It's something you're giving up to do what you desire. Other things that you contribute, like if you own a house and you have 4 bedrooms and you use 1 bedroom only for business, and you technically can't use that space for personal use, you're giving up that room to do your business. So you're giving up that personal space. That is your opportunity cost there. But the more important one that we like to focus on is that foregone salary. All right, and I'll show you what we mean by that. So let's look at some explicit and implicit costs of setting up a coffee trailer. So the explicit cost would be the actual trailer itself, the espresso machine, grinders, beans, milk, all those things just to make a latte, right? So once we have that, that is all of our explicit cost. Explicit costs, I like to think, are the exact cost. Like, you know how much money you're spending on the trailer, machine, grinder, labor, all those things. You know those things. That's explicit. Implicit are the things that you don't really see in your bank account. All right, you don't see you paying a credit card for these things. These are things that are happening in the background, such as interest earned on your savings. So if you had $10,000 in savings and you're earning 5% on your savings, if you were to take this $10,000 and put it into your trailer, guess what? You're no longer earning that 5%. So you're giving up on $500. That is an implicit cost, all right? Something that you're not really earning anymore because you're doing the trade. Another thing would be time away from work or salary from quitting your job. So basically, let's say you had a job earning $50,000 a year and you went to do the trailer. You're no longer working at this job. You are giving up on the $50,000 to do the trailer. Again, because you're doing the trailer, you're giving up on your other job here. So we need to consider the cost of that. All right. So again, explicit cost, everything that is associated with business, right, goes over here with explicit cost. Everything outside of that you're giving up in order to do this is your implicit cost. And that's going to make a different profit number, which we'll talk about in a bit.